Oh, jeez. Just getting settled in here. All right. Welcome back to the Friday. Just waiting for a second here for the stream to start. All right. Looks like we are live. So welcome back to the Open Studio Friday design sessions. Again, if you're new around here, the intent of these live streams is really to provide kind of a studio creative environment over the internet where, while I'm working on my project, you can listen in and potentially work on your own projects as well. So in this stream, I just want to make some progress with some projects that I'm working on. First of all, I do want to kind of give you guys an update on this rapid prototype. And then, last time I mentioned just working on the digitization of the M1 Astra model. I feel like that might be a little bit too boring for people and it's like not entirely relatable. So I might skip out on that. We'll see. But there is a little bit left to do for the Astra M1, which is this project right here. You can tell there's a marked difference in quality, right? And it makes sense because this is a kind of a flagship project of sorts. Let me just raise this up here a little bit. While this is a rapid prototype, so it looks a little less polished, and just have to make a couple of updates to both of these projects today, and I think we should be able to, finish off the stream pretty productive with two great aircraft here. And in terms of, I guess, a next project, I know I mentioned doing, live streams for the CAD model development for the M1 Astra, but again, I feel like that's not too relatable for a lot of people, so I might just do that in my own time. It actually takes quite a long time to develop CAD models, especially at my current skill level. I'm not, a CAD expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm just an enthusiast, a hobbyist. So, we might pick another plane to try and make. Might not necessarily be a rapid prototype, but I want to try and create something that's based in the real world, kind of like the F-16 again, but except with a much faster kind of pace to the development, right? So we want to make it really quick, not make it like a super long engineering science project of sorts, which I know we kind of did with the F-16. It took a month or two to make that, but I really want to accelerate the development time of these projects, unless it's like a flagship project like the Astra here, in which case I would have to spend a decent amount of time inventing, tinkering with things. But I guess for now we can just go through the M1 Astra and the rapid prototype and see what changes we need to do. I guess we'll look at the Astra later, because this project is basically complete. It could probably just be finished as is, but it's just some finishing touches here and there that might make it a little bit better. So I'll just put this to the side right now. The one that needs the most work right now is the Astra, or not the Astra, the rapid prototype. So in my initial flight testing indoors, I found that this aircraft was particularly, I would say, unstable in the pitch axis. The problem that I'm encountering is that the nose, no matter how much weight I put in the back, remember last time I placed these 6 disc magnets on the aft of the aircraft, which is to add a little bit of weight to balance it out a little bit. This is actually not ideal. Like, this configuration is not great for flying, because the vertical stabilizers, which act as a pseudo elevator of sorts, it's very close to the main wing, and because the the majority of the aircraft, like almost half of it, is in front of the main wings, what it tends to do is it drags the nose down, and it causes it to not be able to pitch up, because the vertical stabilizers, which are actually in a V-tail configuration, if you look from the back, right, it's not as effective at pulling the nose out of that tendency of diving downwards. And so in the last live stream, I kind of explained this through kind of a analogy, right? So if you try and see this aircraft as a flying wing, right, this requires a lot of reflex. Like, flying wing configuration aircraft, the trailing edges need to be basically turned up all the way in order for it to fly, with pitch stability. It's very hard to get that stability right, and you'll notice that I did put the flaps down here. I tested it with both flaps down, the inboard flaps down, and also inboard flaps up. But no matter what I did, it seemed pretty much indifferent to the tuning. So I thought about the reasons why this might be, and I compared it to kind of the X47B that I had made earlier, which I can grab really quick. Sorry about that. Just be right back. Alright, so this is what a traditional flying wing kind of looks like. It's a very large area, right? But if you can imagine these leading edges of the outer panels coming in, if you just draw like a dotted line, it kind of ends up here, right? And so, that's the main wing, and it tends to pitch down without anything else. But in this aircraft, in the X47B, there's actually a significant amount of area in the front, right? And also this entire body acts as kind of a lifting surface of sorts. So this whole thing can be kind of approximated by one giant kind of triangle flying through the air, which, Delta configuration aircraft, they work, right? But when you do this, where your fuselage is not necessarily an airfoil shape, so it doesn't produce a lot of lift, and it's just hard for pitch stability to be maintained here. So the original design did not call for canards, right? The initial concept sketch looked something like this, which I can grab really quick here. So initial sketch was not like that, but oh shoot, wrong side. Notice I haven't really sketched all that much recently, but the sketch for this rapid prototype 005 looks something like this. So there wasn't any canards in the front, and that's pretty much what we built. We did move the vertical stabilizers inboard, just to simplify the mounting structure and to prevent ruined airflow over the wing, right? Just moved it in a little bit. But in my concept sketches, these aren't really tested. These are more like art concepts rather than actual prototypes with calculated designs, things like that. So sometimes reality, physics doesn't enable you to make certain things, and this appears to be one of the cases where that is kind of taking effect here. So the only real way to kind of correct for this pitch down, nose down tendency in this aircraft design would either be to extend the booms, which would make it look pretty weird, because that's not really what this plane is about. It's not a twin boom regular wing in the front aircraft. It's kind of like, the vertical stabilizers are just kind of mounted on the aft end here, and the wings are supposed to fly themselves. But since we do have that tendency, we probably do need to add some sort of canard here. And I know that ruins this initial concept. It ruins the initial whole concept of the RP005 is to have this plan form. But sometimes physics just doesn't let you do certain things, and you just have to provide a little bit of lifting force in the front to nudge the nose upwards so that it doesn't crash all the time. And so that's what we're going to be working on in this stream, at least in the beginning, is just adding some simple canards. It shouldn't take too long to make, hopefully. And these canards aren't going to be moving at all. They're not going to have moving parts, moving control surfaces, nothing. It's just going to be like taped on to the fuselage. That's it. It's cut and dry pretty much. But hopefully with that little bit of extra surface area in the front, the nose doesn't tend to dive downwards in flight tests, and we should be all set to go in that case. Just a little bit more on the details of this thing. So the wingtips, I did reinforce them, I think, outside of a stream. I don't remember exactly if I did this on stream, but yeah, these are reinforced. You'll notice that they're also folded down a little bit, and that was to help. I was trying all sorts of different ideas to make the aircraft stable, and it just wouldn't fly. So you notice that this fold line is at an angle, which means that when this is folded down a little bit, it kind of acts as a leading edge slat of sorts. But at this tip area here, what that really does is it provides kind of a downwards force. It's supposed to act as kind of like a wing twist. So, at your root chord here, it's kind of flat, and then eventually at the tip, it starts to, rotate like down as you come towards the camera here. Right, it's flat, and then it kind of rotates down. And the reason for that is, again, to provide some upwards pitch movement, as well as, actually, that's pretty much it, is just to make the pitch stability of the aircraft a little bit better. You notice that I think Roger, Paper Airplane Rogers something, he pretty much focuses on flying wings, and he does this on every single aircraft that he makes, where he points the kind of wingtips of the aircraft down and adds a little bit of twist. But that's like a whole nother art form in itself in adjusting these fine control surfaces. But we just want to make this plane work, so we're going to add canards, and I'm going to go ahead and get started with that process here. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to send them in through the chat, or just watch in silence, I guess. Really, people get more out of these streams when there's more interaction, but hey, I totally get it. I'm a quiet person too. Also, I'm staying caffeinated, so if you see me drinking coffee, that's why. Gotta love Starbucks. Anyways, all right, we do need some equipment here. Just a pencil and not that. It's a ruler, pair of scissors, and an X-Acto knife. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And then try and draw out. So this is actually quite simple. You just want canards at the front of the aircraft here. And the way we do that is kind of just draw out the shape that we want to achieve after kind of aligning the middle here down the longitudinal axis. The reason why you don't want to just draw the shape itself is that you need to attach it to something, right? So you need a little bit of an anchor point overlap with the fuselage. That's why you gotta align an edge of the piece of paper there. Just makes it easier. I mean, you totally feel free to do it another way. This is not by any means the only way to do it. So I'm not sure how much I need. It seems like a pretty subtle amount that's kind of required. But I guess it's okay to go a little big on this. The nice thing about this particular canard and this aircraft is that it's mounted on a fuselage, a lower fuselage that's actually slanted a little bit. So if you notice, like, these surfaces down here are at an angle. They're not perfectly flat or going downwards. And what that does is, along this edge, the fact that this is pointed a little bit means that the canards are mounted naturally in a position that allows for the nose up tendency. So actually that's quite convenient for our purposes, to have that kind of geometry here. So I'm just trying to explain my thought process here behind this aircraft. Don't want it to be too extreme, but also we need just a little bit more area. We don't want it to be like too obvious, So I think in real life, an example of this would be the B-1B Lancer. I think it's like a swing wing bomber of sorts. It has like 4 engines, and it's probably my favorite design for a bomber to say. But that aircraft, you'll notice that because the wings sweep back so much and change the center of pressure, center of lift, it does have little tiny canards. I mean, they're not like really canard surfaces. They're more like kind of small fins at the nose of the aircraft, and those are to help the transition when it goes from zero sweep to all the way swept back during supersonic flight. The canards move a little bit and help adjust for that, and it makes the whole thing stable. So I thought that was an interesting little real life counterpart to this thing that we're kind of doing here as well. Yeah, that's a funny sound. Let me just get a rough shape down first. I think this is pretty decent. Again, we're not looking for something that's too extreme in any sort of sense here. Just need a little bit more area near this chine front fuselage area here to lift the nose up a little bit during flight. So again, in an ideal world, our plane would fly without these, but since it's not an ideal world that we live in, we'll have to integrate these surfaces in. That line marks the transition between, I believe it's the chine and the actual surface, yeah. But we're keeping all of this area here, basically. So this is a pretty simple geometry when it comes down to it. These lines here just help mark out the areas where, you know, it's an anchor, which is this area here. And then just clean up some of the line work here so that we have a better idea of what the surface actually looks like. Okay, so this is kind of the geometry that we want to go with. And then kind of line it up here, and then I have an idea of what it's going to look like. For the wingtips, I don't know if I want to truncate it or point it or anything. Kind of looks weird. I'm not sure if I want to keep that change. Again, I don't think it matters too much. It just needs to not look weird is all. I could just do a straight crop like that, but I don't know. I like the pointed look. It gives it a little personality, you know. So, okay, this is looking pretty decent. And then just alright, just grab a second ruler here. Okay, so that folds down. And then I just have to trace the mirror image here, this part. There we go. Just very quick prototyping. This is what substantiates the name Rapid Prototype in this design. Now, these parts, they're not necessarily the highest quality parts nor is it the highest quality design, because those are really left for my YX series of aircraft. Again, I consider those to be my flagship projects, where I kind of treat them as my, personal greatest work series. Basically, I put in more time and effort into those versus these rapid prototypes. They're really just meant to test out ideas and build things really quick, iterate, things like that. So in a sense, these are a little bit more exciting, but also there are some aspects of these rapid prototypes that are lacking, which is the depth of design, attention to detail, right? So you'll notice that there's just a visual difference, right? There's a lot of tape on this, versus the Astra, which looks a little bit smoother. There's mechanical moving parts in the Astra, but there's not a single moving part in the rapid prototype. So that's just kind of how I do things. You need both types of projects to keep you, striving for improvement and, just working on something. This is looking good. I do want to make these with cardstock, right? Again, we traced out the design onto a regular printed paper, sheet of paper. That was redundant what I said there, but oh well. Okay, so this is going to be traced and cut out 2 times. And we're trying to save the amount of cutting that we need to do. So we align one of the edges, or 2 of the edges, to the very edge here. And we'll just draw the rest of the outline here. That saves us a little bit of time, a little bit of energy, cutting things out. For the second one, we're really limited by whatever's left on the sheet of paper. So, oh shoot, I just shifted it. Okay, I'm just gonna align it back. Oh, looks good. This isn't some sort of secret message to you investors out there with the diamond hands, but it's not intended for that at all. Just a funny coincidence. Okay, so we have both of these marked out, and now we just need to cut both of them out and then fold them in half. Yeah, should be all set after that. Just a little bit of taping left to do. Okay, that's the first canard. It's a massive surface, but that's not all going to be part of the canard. I mean, it's not all going to serve to lift the nose up. It's not necessarily wetted area. That's the term we use for surfaces that actually interact with the air to provide useful force or stability. You'll notice that actually the majority of this template is anchor point, right? So if you fold it onto the other side, it's going to be kind of covering that area right there. So the actual canard isn't that big. So hope everyone's doing well. Looks like we got 2 viewers, a little bit more than normal. Again, I'm not really necessarily doing these streams for the views, just to document kind of progress that I'm making here, and also hopefully you find it kind of a creative atmosphere, and you can send questions, you can interact through these live streams as well, and that's another huge selling point of these live streams rather than having pre-recorded sessions, right? So again, please feel free to reach out and kind of even discuss projects that you guys are working on. This channel isn't big, so my audience is quite close-knit, I would say, and I'm actually able to respond to every single one of you, so alright, so we have both of our parts done, and then we just what do we do? Oh yeah, just mark out the center here really quick. Just need a little tiny mark. It doesn't have to be massive, as long as we know where the middle is. You could just try and fold it, but I feel a little bit more confident after marking the surface that we need to fold. Okay, now that we're done with that, we can grab this and just move that out of the way. Grab that edge there, make a gentle crease. See if the shape actually matches. Sometimes it doesn't match up perfectly, but what are you gonna do? Nothing is perfect. You can only get close enough to an acceptable amount of error. Looks good. Alright, so this is going to go right here. And notice that the way it's angled, it's already pointing up a little bit, which is good. That's what we want. So again, I apologize for this. White balance seems a little off, but I'm not gonna mess with that. Last time I made it blue or green or something. Okay, so what we have to do now is the same thing for the other side. Let's fold it first. I'll try and fold it without the ruler because this is a pretty simple part, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal, but I'll just show you what happens here. If your part was made pretty well. Like the layout was transferred correctly from the template. And you won't have many issues, which seems to be the case here, but sometimes it just doesn't match up the two mirror sides, right? Sometimes symmetry is not guaranteed. You just kind of fold that. I'm not going to make it a hard crease because I want kind of a blunted leading edge here, not necessarily a sharp corner or crease of any sort. So that's that. I'm just going to move my M1 Astra out of the way, grab some tape. Okay, so just really quick. Piece of tape, line half of it on, half of it off. Okay, and this is why an X-Acto knife is nice. You just very simply trim off this excess here. You could use a pair of scissors, but I find that when pieces of tape get stuck to my scissors, it's really difficult to get them off. And also, this is just much cleaner than just slicing it off. Because if you use scissors, it might leave a little bit left over. Things like that. Just tips and tricks for building things. I'm going to tape the trailing edge here. Alright, perfect length. You just close up that surface. Close up that open fold. Just tape over it like that. That's pretty good. It even has a little gentle curve here. I'm not sure if we can replicate that, but hopefully it won't change the flight characteristics of the airplane too much. Just gotta seal up the trailing edge here as well. Again, this is not a flight surface, at least the part that I'm taping right here, but it's always good to just kind of seal things up so that dirt and other things during flight tests don't get lodged in there. So I've had that happen before, you know, dirt and just random bits of grass and things like that, just changing the center of gravity gradually. So it's just a word of advice, I guess. This looks pretty good. Same steps, post-processing this. Just slice it off. It's a very clean, very minimal edge there. Okay, got that down. do the same thing. Wrap it tightly around. And then should be all set to go. Very simple. Again, rapid prototype. This is supposed to be quick. And hopefully these canards will add the extra bit of lift that we need from the nose of the aircraft to prevent it from nose diving into the ground. Right, so we're just adding these surfaces in. Should hopefully help with this stability issue. Just a little bit more area here. Okay, it's looking good. I think the mounting process is pretty straightforward. Just align it down the middle, because that's how we designed the part. And then you just tape it down. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. What you gotta do, it's really simple. It's the same idea as before. Grab a length of tape. Okay, here we go. And grab a length of tape, right? And then you just align it here. So that looks pretty clean, right? Fold that in over itself. You don't need to cut it, but you could if you wanted to. You just align it. Okay, so it looks like we need to cut the back side a little bit because we already installed the handle. Right, we actually stole the handle from the M1 Astra, but I just need to bypass that handle a little bit to be able to fold this down and over. Let's grab a little length of tape for the back side here. Okay, let me just do the same thing for the other side. So one thing I will note here for this aircraft is that these canards aren't that cleanly integrated into the aircraft. They're kind of just stuck on, which is okay for a rapid prototype, but if you want to make your aircraft look clean, it might be worth considering just wrapping, instead of like folding the two edges of this surface together, it might be better to cut a little slit here so that these two flaps can open up like that, and then mount it around the fuselage. That way it's a little cleaner of a design. But again, we're doing this at a pretty fast pace, so don't really want to consider that as an option, because we just want to get things done really quickly. That's kind of the intent of these rapid prototypes. Then you just take the back as well, just like on the other side here. So again, doesn't look great, but it's gonna help lift our nose up out of the dive. So hopefully that does what it's intended to do. And then for the front here, we also have to secure this leading edge so that it doesn't droop down over time. Doing that know that's like kind of a recurring problem with this way of mounting, is that you need to tape both seams here. That looks good. And then just gotta get to the other side here. Again, this is not the most elegant design. If you want to go for absolute perfection and elegance, that's what the YX series is for. It looks a little bit cleaner on that design, the canards, because they are mechanically linked to a mechanism inside the fuselage, and there's a lot more consideration that goes on for that aircraft, for that design. That's why it also took a lot longer to make. That's also another trade-off. So depends on what you value, right? So if you value rapid prototypes, you probably are generally a person who likes new novel designs really quick. Feel like short development times, details aren't necessarily that important to you, which is okay, but to me they are important, so that's why I also have the YX series here. So let me just trim that off. Okay, and then we should be all set to go. This aircraft is pretty much done. This should help with the nose down tendency. I don't know if it'll work here, but oh yeah, that's so much better. Oh, that's great. Actually flies now, so that's pretty cool, I guess. Yeah. So hopefully this will be a nice flyer outside, but again, I can't do any flight tests soon because it's a little moist outside. Also, it's cold. It was like mid-50s last week, and now it's like, today it's like 30 something. And I'm just like, this is why we can't have nice things. This is like second or third winter in spring. But anyways, this has been really neat. Just adding canards to this design helped it considerably. Just a little bit of surface area, not all that much. But especially the angle that it's mounted at definitely helps the aircraft keep its nose up, at least in my limited indoors testing just now. But yeah, I hope to do a flight test video of this soon, or something of that caliber. Just make another video soon. But again, if you're new to this channel, if you're just watching, just kind of an update outside of this hobby, outside of this channel, I am planning on moving to a new location pretty soon, so I might stop streaming for the interim, just kind of take a break a little bit and also move everything. So yeah, just a heads up, I might pause the streaming, pause the projects for a month or two, but we'll see about that. We'll see how far we get with these projects before then. Definitely also want to find a decent place to test out these prototypes rather than just kind of going outside here to my little local park there. It's right next to a highway, so it's really difficult to hear my voice outside, but hopefully the new place doesn't have that problem. Yeah, this is Rapid Prototype 005, looking pretty neat. It's a pretty quick design, pretty rapid design. excited to see it fly in real life, outside or inside. Just gotta add one more piece of tape here just to smooth this fairing out. Definitely, like, this column here is going to be very turbulent, but it's not a lifting surface, so I'm not too concerned. The lifting surfaces are all pretty clean here. The canards are receiving fresh air from incoming flow. Just going to lift the nose up, and then this main wing here, inboard flaps are down, so it produces a little bit extra lift at the expense of a little bit more drag, but that's okay. And then this outboard here is kind of an elevator to counter that kind of motion of pitching down. So hopefully this works. Hopefully this flies really well. I have a feeling it will. It's a very simple, lightweight design, so it's also extremely rigid. So like the nose is extremely durable. So we'll see. See how it does. But yeah, and I guess for now, after that, we said we would kind of do some finishing touches on the M1 Astra, which we haven't seen for a while on this stream, but it's back. Just a little bit of finishing up to do here. I think for the most part, it's pretty much all set. Do want to like seal up some of these tape edges here. Okay, so yeah, we're just gonna get started here with doing that. Also, I do want to cover the control surfaces. Let me do that first. I think that's a bigger priority for me. Is to, just grab a piece of tape like that and really seal up the control surface here. I want to be kind of gentle here because this is a moving part. This mechanism linked internally. Just want to be careful here. Okay, it's pretty clean. Just remove this extra little scrap here. Then you just follow through and seal that leading edge in. So the reason I do this is to give it a little bit more weather protection. There's like a piece of grass that is cut apart because of the crash, right? So usually the grass itself, the blade of grass, has a little bit of fluid inside, so you want to be able to handle a little bit of moisture, especially on a surface like this near the front of the aircraft, because that's usually where it experiences any sort of damage, right? So it's to improve water resistance, improve the durability, right? If you seal in the surface in a polymer material, right? So this is, and tape is made from cellophane, which is a polymer. So it acts kind of like a plastic. That's not a plastic again, but should be pretty good for keeping out dirt and stains and things like that. So just need another piece here. Again, we can always cut the excess, so I'm not too concerned there. But the idea is to really protect this edge, or protect this surface here. Okay, so that was pretty sketchy, but yeah, it's not perfectly done. It's not really the expectation either. This is just a handcrafted model, so I don't expect it to be machine perfect. So I'm just trimming a little bit of the excess here. This canard, this control surface is already sealed in terms of the open outer edges here. But that's also why I guess I don't want to fold this over, because that adds thickness and weight, unnecessary weight. It's kind of like doing surgery almost. I'm just carefully making adjustments here and there, fixing things up. Okay, that looks pretty good. Well, that surface is done. We did not do the bottom surface, which we now need to do. Okay, so I'm going to put it right here on the tape dispenser, because I don't want the canards to be squished. If you watched through the build of the M1 Astra of this design, you know that internally there is a wire structure that connects with the mechanism. Right, so it's pretty strong, but also fragile in many ways. Right, it's a ductile material, so it's easy to bend into certain shapes, and then it'll stay there, which don't want to happen for a control surface, because it's a control surface. So, and we do need to move the canards a little bit to enable a better fit for the tape. So I'm going to pull this to get a better angle. There we go. Yeah, just adjust it a little bit here and there. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. Support the canard a little bit here while we trim off the excess. This is the importance of having a very sharp X-Acto knife, is that you can cut these things a lot cleaner than I can. My knife is pretty old. It's at least several years old, but when you're not cutting many heavy-duty materials, it lasts a pretty long time. So I was actually contemplating the other day of getting a new X-Acto knife, but I was like, this one's working all right. I can still live with this, save myself $7 or $8. It's not a huge deal, but you know, just the principle of acquiring things that you don't necessarily need. In the sense that, you know, what you have right now is working perfectly fine. Of course, if you want to upgrade, that's a different story, right? But all right, it's looking pretty good. This is weather sealed now, so it's also a little bit shinier because tape tends to reflect a little bit more light. It gives it a little bit of a glow that you guys can't necessarily see that, but when you're just looking at the aircraft, right, there's a little bit of shine that comes through. Right, so this is uncovered on the right side of the aircraft, so it's a little dull, right? It doesn't really reflect light all that much. It's like a subtle difference. You can't really notice it here. And the white balance is so off right now. It's like so yellow. It doesn't look yellow in real life, but can't really fix that. I'm sorry. All right, just gonna drink a little coffee to keep myself not hydrated. Keep myself caffeinated. Okay, so we finished off the port side canard here. We'll probably work on that plate side there. Yep, same story. It's just, again, with planes, because things are symmetrical, you have to do things twice. So, sorry this is like too boring for you guys, but it's part of the process. Yeah. Pretty good fit. Okay. I just gotta trim off the excess, like on the other side. Grab that little strip, a scrap piece there. Okay, and then you just bring it to the other side here. And roll it in place. Put this here so that it doesn't damage the vertical stabilizers, which are mounted via tape, so it's a little bit wobbly. Okay, so that looks pretty decent, I would say. Okay, that looks pretty good. Yeah, just gotta seal this whole surface here, which should just be one strip of tape like that. Gotta handle this carefully. I can't believe I'm gonna be chucking this thing outside eventually for a flight test. That's the big step for this aircraft. Just testing it, flight testing it. Seeing if it actually flies well. That's what's different about, there's like modelers out there that, make plastic models that look very realistic. This is not quite that level of detail, but I intend for all my planes to actually be able to fly, which for this aircraft might be a bit of a stretch. It might have to just fly really fast because this is quite heavy. It's the first time I really considered one of my aircrafts to be heavy, because it has so many mechanical parts inside that you aren't necessarily seeing. But those aren't what's heavy. I think the majority of the weight for this design for the Astra is the dual cardboard planform base, kind of reinforcement there. So if you go back and look at what I've done for this aircraft, the core base of the airplane is made out of two pieces of what do you call it, cereal box material. So it's like a cardboard, but it's a certain type of cardboard. It's pretty thin, very strong, but also the downside is that it's pretty heavy. If I only used one of those pieces, I think this aircraft would be a lot more manageable in terms of weight, but I decided to go all out, and I doubled the mass of the base on which we built everything on top of, which makes it really strong, don't get me wrong. I also just sandwiched a bunch of popsicle sticks in between the two layers. That's probably what makes it so heavy. But I tested it indoors with very slow flight speeds. It did pretty well. Has very favorable stall characteristics where the nose kind of gently comes down like that, and then it just crashes. But it's very mellow in terms of flight characteristics. I'm sure at higher speeds it'll actually fly pretty decently. It's just I haven't really configured the aircraft for that quite yet. Again, with the weather sealing that we're doing here, we're bringing it a step closer to be able to be flight tested outdoors. That's the only other thing for flight testing, is that the landing gear need to be stowed, which is a little bit difficult in this model because they're spring loaded, right? So you have the mechanism here that allows it to be spring loaded, so it kind of bounces whenever it hits the ground. This is actually not that strong. It's strong when you drop it desktop and you see how it does, but when you stow it, it should be able to handle outdoors flights. But when it's deployed, it cannot be flown outdoors or just even indoors at a higher speed, because this will bend out of shape. So yeah, it's a lot of adjustments that I need to make before I am able to test this outside. Again, right, there's just so many surfaces on this design that we need to seal up. Like, for example, the wingtips here. I can't focus, but yeah, that's still open. There's a gap there. We need to seal that up. We need to seal up, again, we have a canard here. We have both wing surfaces, top and bottom, need to be covered, and we need to tape down these little gaps here in the fairing. And just overall, just little details here and there that make this a bit of a pain in the neck to actually finish off. But again, we're almost there. We're very close. So I think for the rest of the stream, I'm gonna try and really finish off this Astra, but again, no promises, right? It's a flagship project. Might take a while. Okay, and then just to adjust the positioning of the canards a little bit to get a better angle on this thing. I just do that, and then just grab our X-Acto knife and just like hot butter or hot knife through butter. Just kind of cut that off. You can even rip it along the edge because it's kind of what tape likes to do. Just kind of gives at the weakest location. And just adjusting the canard angle so that we can make a slight incision here. Don't want to tape up this mechanism. Okay. Right. That is pretty good, pretty clean. And I realize there's like a tiny like little triangle here that's exposed with it. That's okay. That's not gonna be a huge issue. I'd rather save weight than seal that. So it's looking pretty good. This is front canards are now sealed up. I just got to work on the wing now. I can't believe it hasn't been sealed up until this point, because it's such a like main part of the aircraft. It's like it's kind of surprising, to be honest, but you know, we're here now, so we're gonna do our job and seal that up. Maybe fix this connection here. Again, this is more of an art than a science. This is just smoothing everything out. So if you notice, like, I like to watch a lot of maker channels. I'm not necessarily quite there myself, but you know, just woodworking and things like that. They like to sand things to perfection, and I kind of view this level of taping and, you know, finishing kind of like applying like polyurethane or something like that to a finished wood product. It's just smoothing everything out and making everything look nice. But also, for aircraft, this is actually a critical step in unlocking better performance, right? Because if you have a lot of rough edges, that can cause a lot of drag, which slows your plane down, right? It bleeds off energy very inefficiently. So for aircraft and things that deal with fluid movements, it's worth the effort to make things at least a little bit more smooth, right? There are cases when you don't want to make that trade-off, right? Because it just takes too long or it's too expensive. But you know, in general, it's a good idea to smooth things out, right? Unless you choose otherwise for another purpose, right? It has to be a defined purpose for what you're doing. So for me, that trade-off sometimes occurs for like rapid prototypes. I notice that they're not too terribly smooth. Like, I don't spend too much time to try and, again, we worked on a rapid prototype earlier in this stream, and we added canards to this otherwise beautiful, you know, just wing and fuselage design, but it wouldn't work, so we had to add this. That's a trade-off, right? That canard surface does add a restoring lifting force to make it stable in flight, but it also adds a bit of drag and a bit of weight, right? But in anything that's design related, that's engineering related, you have to make trade-offs, you know, in order to achieve what you want to achieve. And this is one of those cases where I had to add this for stability purposes or the whole thing doesn't work. You'd rather have something that works but doesn't work that well inefficiently. It's inefficient rather than having a plane that just straight up crashes all the time. So it's like you gotta make those decisions and see when it's worth it to do something, right? So again, everyone has different thresholds for what they want to achieve out of a certain project. For me, I just want it to work, first of all. Prioritize function, right? But also you want to try and make it look nice. And usually things that look nice do perform nice as well. So it's a good rule of thumb there. And if it doesn't, then you have to adjust your sense of aesthetics to match what works in the real world, right? And so, it's an interesting process. Kind of learning that, as I progressed in this channel and its designs, and the things that I make, realize that like in the beginning everything looked pretty blocky, pretty, it was a different kind of design language. If you go back in time and watch some of my very old videos, but through the years, you go to university, you go to college, you learn about fluid dynamics, learn about airplanes, and you're like, oh, okay, that's why fairings exist, right? It's to smooth drag out and, reduce drag and smooth the surface out. And it's like, it unlocks a new kind of level of thinking in many ways. But yeah, it's interesting to debate form versus function as well. I know I've personally debated with people who purely functionalists, like they were like, this thing has to work, right? Like so they go with like the bare bones. When we make RC aircraft, they were always the type of people to recommend just building a straight rectangular wing. But it's like, it's not the most aerodynamic wing, but it works. It produces lift. It's gonna lift your plane up. So you can't really complain there. But it's, I'm always the type of person that's like, okay, well, we can we can round out the wingtips, we can make it, look nice, and it's gonna fly a little better too. But they're like, well, adding a wingtip cover that's round and nice will take time to make, and it's gonna add extra weight, like a tiny bit extra weight. I'm just like, just add the little thing, make it smooth. I enjoy like a good, properly designed solution rather than just something hobbled together to make it work. But I do realize that as an engineering student, there are people that are purely functionalists. Like, if it works, I don't care, it works. Like, I'm gonna get paid in the real world for making this thing work. So who cares about whether or not it looks nice? And there are definitely those people out there, which not really my cup of tea, but you do you. Those people are incredibly smart, get things to work really well, but the end product just doesn't look that great necessarily, or behave that great for the human factors portion, right? It's like, human beings like to make things that look nice, right? You watch Kurzgesagt videos. He makes like science animations. The videos that he makes, that team makes, are very nicely done. They had a video that was like, why do humans have this sense of aesthetics and beauty, right? And the interesting thing is that, even when you go back thousands of years, when people were making, not airplanes, but people were making tools, just hunting tools, knives and things, right? There's really no reason for a spear to be symmetrical. You could have it be like jagged, right? You could have it be other shapes, but people, prefer to make them symmetrical. And it's like, that's a very curious observation, right? There's no functional purpose to that, but why do we do it, right? And then it's like, he dives into how, the basic psychology of people, of human beings, is that we have this sense of beauty, right? Because in living things, living things often have symmetry, right? Like, you look at my face, there's a general sense of symmetry, you know, two eyes, two nostrils, two ears, things like that. But, you know, it's inherently in our nature to seek out symmetry, seek out patterns, and that's what, you know, kind of triggers that part of our brain that goes, huh, this is good, this is symmetric and nice. Again, part of it has to do with kind of how we evolved, but I think there's a bit of truth to that, though, because if you look at nature, a lot of things that are extremely beautiful, they work really well. Like, the form and function are perfectly tuned, right? Like, nature and evolution is like the best designer. It's the longest designing force, right, out there, and it never really goes wrong. If you look at flowers, they're arranged in spirals, right? It's all sorts of patterns like that. And, you know, it just looks beautiful, and it performs a job really well. For example, flowers, they arrange petals to receive light and things like that, in a way that maximizes the amount of surface area that receives a certain amount of light. Right? That's why they're arranged in these spirals that go around, according to the Fibonacci sequence. And I can get all into that. Like, that's like very interesting stuff. It's like philosophical kind of aesthetics, and then it feeds into my kind of design philosophy, which is that if you make something look nice, at least it looks nice. If it doesn't work, then oh well, but it has to be decent quality, right? It has to work. So I'm just trying to seal up this little gap here on the vertical stabilizer. Oh, sorry about that, just a little tangent there, but look, that just smoothed out. So there was like 2 pieces of tape that were just kind of like stuck onto the surface like that, and since the leading edge of the vertical stabilizer is rounded, these 2 edges were kind of just sticking out like that. But by applying that piece of tape, you make the whole thing round and smooth. So it's like just little things like that, I try and do a good job at making sure everything's smooth and nice and things like that. So yeah, it's looking good. It's looking pretty good. The left side is pretty much all set there for the top surface. Let's do the right side top surface here. So again, this is kind of just going through the motion of sealing up things here. Oh, it's telling me to stand. Oh man, I am a potato. I don't stand. I just sit here all day. Just kidding. Although that's not too far from the truth, I suppose. I'm just gonna... Okay, what do we do for the other side? I believe we taped right up until the leading edge slat, or leading edge flaps. I keep on saying slat, but it's honestly just a flap. Slats, they imply that the surface actually separates from the leading edge and then creates like a little gap, but that's not necessarily the case here. That's not what this surface was designed to do. And just get another one going for the back side here, I guess. Probably this long. That should be good enough. Alright. Just okay, it looks pretty good. Just gotta trim off the excess here. This is the most satisfying part of any build, is that you just get to slice the excess off. Yeah, this one's a little bit stubborn. Okay, if you cut from the other side, it's a little better. The more you know. Alright. It's looking pretty good. This gap here, okay, that might be a little bit of a problem. So just gotta lift this up real quick and get that fillet taped in. Taped in nice and dandy. Ah, that's a very smooth transition. I can see that, like, any transition is going to be inefficient, right? Because the best aerodynamic shape is just a straight thing that has no wobbly bits, right, going in and out. But when you do have a transition, smooth ones are generally better, and that is a very smooth transition. I really like that. Wow. Just the back one as well. Current fillet between the two is a little large. Just adjust this little corner here. Pinch it in a little bit tighter. And we're all set. And that's a very smooth transition. Okay, this edge here is a little annoying. It keeps on wanting to pop up. And there's no way of taping it down because right here is the leading edge slat, or leading edge flap. Keep on saying that. So I don't really know how to seal this up. Unless you like use adhesives inside, but that's maybe a little troubling to install. So I might just leave it like this, take a little bit of an efficiency hit here, but it shouldn't be too big of a deal, to be honest. For the most part, it looks good. Looks good. Alright. And I do have to seal the side of the fairing for the front nose gear here. Actually, it's already taped. Never mind. Yeah, it's already sealed. Never mind. Alright. We're pretty much all set to go then. Okay, so you just want to finish off this wingtip here, and then, oh yeah, we have the entire bottom side here to cover up for the wings, but that shouldn't be too big of a deal. Okay, so we just have a little patch there left to go. Just gonna do our best here at sealing this. So in the past, I've always overlapped panels of tape, just segments of tape. I just overlap them a little bit, but to be honest, that's not really necessary. You can line them up, line on line contact. That usually does the trick. And actually, it looks of cellophane, which changes the transparency or changes the look, right? It's a little bit overlapped tape, looks a little bit whiter. It just is the way it is. Sorry, that's not like too horribly useful, but yeah, just kind of is a line on line contact tape pieces. Line on line just looks cleaner, is what I'm saying. That's why I prefer to do that. Downside is it's a little bit more troubling to actually install. Do that, rip that off. There's a little section here that's, I guess we could cover that up. Yeah, details make the whole, right? Alright, hold on here. I don't know if it's gonna show up or anything.